Hey, welcome. My name is Zach Arrett, and I'm the Education Manager for United World Wrestling, and I'd like to welcome everybody here today to today's webinar. Before we get started, a couple of things. I am broadcasting today from my school, and we are close to reopening back up. But as a result, they are testing and running through the bell system. So periodically throughout the course of the webinar, certainly expect to hear some loud sounds and even possibly a little bit of music in between there as they test to make sure that they are working during the passing periods for the students. So during that time, if the music does happen, I'll probably just stop for a second. It'll be about a 50-second break in between there if that does happen. But I just want to forewarn everybody and just appreciate your patience as we go through today's webinar. Today's topic is on controlling the bout. And this is really kind of a combination of a lot of things, that we've talked about and discussed before. So when we look at, how do we control the bout better as a referee, we're going to be pulling some of those strategies and some of those other topics that we covered previously. So we'll kind of go back and review through those as well. As I mentioned in almost every referee webinar that I've done, when we look at this, this is really geared for probably any level of referee, whether you're a national referee or maybe somebody who just wants to get started as a referee, or somebody who is national, wanting to move to become an international referee. But really, if you're already an international referee and you're looking to go from being a good referee to being one of the best referees, this topic is probably one of the number one topics that come up, or one of those things you really have to be able to do during that time. So certainly I think there's some benefit to everybody as we go through this, but this is something that is definitely learned, and you learn some strategies that will help be able to apply this and be able to work any level of competition as you go. Next, I want to also just a quick reminder about the United World Wrestling Academy site. If you have not had a chance to get there, we really encourage you to take an opportunity to go to the Academy platform, get logged in, get registered, start connecting with others in wrestling. It's a great place to not only connect, but it is an education resource for anybody involved with wrestling. There's something there for everyone. For example, we have a couple of courses designed specifically for referees. One is the online rules test, which really goes through the basics of the rules. It doesn't go through in particular like a lot of complex and detailed situations. The referee commission has been doing, webinars each week on those types of, on those situations, those areas, those hot topics. And they're doing a great job of really narrowing down that too, and helping educate how things get called. Also, I think that, another good place to go with this too is the Introduction to Referee course. And so this is a great place for those that are getting started, or just those that want to go through and just review some of the topics of what it takes to be a referee. And so if you look at the picture here on the left-hand side, you can take a look and see that here's the list of all the different topics that this course has. As you'll notice, a lot of these are what we've been talking about over the past 2.5 months. So and much of what we've been discussing webinar content-wise is based off of this Introduction to Referee course that we have online. There was a small issue with the using the bout sheet. So we have this using the bout sheet part of this, but we have gotten that fixed. So if you haven't been on there recently, I encourage you to go back and restart that module part, and everything should work and should go there, should work well. So before we get started, I would like to do a quick poll as always, and just to find out, where is everybody checking in from, and also which one best describes your role in wrestling? Are you a national coach, a local coach, a referee? If you are, what category referee are you in that process? So if you could take an opportunity to just go through and check the box here that best describes where you're at and your role within wrestling. right. So in polling, share some results here. So here we have, so a majority of people here checking in from Asia. So that's great to have everybody, because I know the time difference from where you're at right now is certainly probably pretty late in the afternoon or even evening or nighttime. So, and again, thank you for those who joining in from all over. And certainly it looks like a majority that we have here are referees, coming in. So some category 1 and 1S referees, excellent. And a number of category 3 referees. So I think this will be a great webinar, particularly for those in category 3s as you're looking to progress that next level and move up to that. I think this will be very helpful in that process. All right, so let's take a look at our objectives for today. What we really want to cover in this webinar is we're going to look at a couple things. One is how to improve the control during a bout. And with that, we're going to look at how can you reduce unsporting behaviors or actually just try to prevent it from happening. Then how, if you do have unsporting behaviors, how do you handle that? And then we'll also take a look at the consultation process, specifically from the, this is one of the tools the mat chairman has to help control the bout if need. We'll also look at another aspect of this, which is improving the safety of the wrestlers. We'll kind of look at recognizing some situations and some good position of where to be in those places. Now, I do know that Dr. Babak and Antonio on July 23rd spent time going through, the referee's job in preventing injuries. I would encourage everybody to go back and rewatch that webinar. I think there's a lot of great points in there, and just one of our main responsibilities as a referee is to prevent injuries. So I'm going to talk about it just briefly today, and part of us being able to control the bout better. Controlling that bout involves making sure we improve the safety of the wrestlers during that time. The first thing we're going to take a look at and start with is how do I reduce unsporting behaviors? And we're going to look at strategies and things that we can do to help reduce the possibility of those taking place, or us being able to reduce the level at which it happens. So the first thing we're going to take a look at here is going to be, the communication during the bout. And we talked about this in previous webinars, and we're really pulling from those places, because this helps reduce the type of behavior that we don't want to see in the match. And so this is important that we're using the UWW vocabulary correctly, and we are speaking and stimulating the action and talking to those wrestlers during the match using those vocabulary terms, because most wrestlers all know those terms regardless of what language they speak. It's also important that when you're speaking to the wrestlers during the course of wrestling, while they're wrestling, that you also say the color along with the command. The color helps them identify that if you're talking to them or not, and then they hear the command, they know what to do to fix it or correct that type of behavior during that time. So it's important that we communicate correctly during that. And also, that communication when we're looking at is also that distance, from the wrestlers, like how close are we when we're talking to them and communicating to them. And we mentioned that we talked about positioning a lot in the last webinar that we did. And that's really just about how far away are you from the wrestlers and your ability to be able to move in and out when speaking to them. Because your ability to talk and communicate in your presence that they feel based on your position will really help reduce unsporting behaviors. Now, I thought that this video from last webinar was excellent with Sam, and I wanted to show it again, just because I think when you're trying to control the unsporting behaviors that come up with this, it's such an important process here of being able to be close enough that you can speak to them, but you don't want to be too close where you might get involved or have an impact on the action. It hits you, runs into you, something like that. So this is a great job by Sam of showing this. We'll see here. Start it again here. So here's Sam. Great job. He's out. He steps in to communicate to him. He's about a meter away from him, and then he, backs back out. But because he's close to them, when he steps in and communicates with them, what happens is, they're able to feel that, and he's able to have more control and more authority during that match. So that's an important part of being able to control the bout, is being able to have that authority or that presence on the mat. And simply what he just did there, a little bit out, he stepped in, he talked to them so they could feel him, they could hear him, and then he stepped back out and continued to referee. So that's a great job, just reviewing, some of the topics we had from before. The next one here of controlling a bout, something I think that's really important here is the ability to have good time management during the course of a bout. When we look at this, it's sometimes we have to have the timing of the calls. How was the match going? How was the flow going? And our ability to control that has a lot to do with the timing of which when we make those calls. So we need to make sure we're always aware of that. And I think that will help us to do a better job with that. And I talked about that a little bit last week as well. Another important part is being able to stop at the end of the period or match. And again, also a topic that we talked about last week as well is knowing where you're at relative to the clock. Well, why that's important is because if you know when the match or the period is about to end, you can stop the wrestlers at exactly the right time, which may prevent, one wrestler continues to wrestle, one wrestler sees the clock, they stop wrestling, and then all of a sudden an action happens after time is out and a wrestler gets injured. So, or something happens, Unsporting wise, it occurs after that time. So it's important to know what the time is so you can stop at the end of the period or end of the match at the right time. And probably one of my favorite strategies here of making sure you know the time is this part. And this is leaving them in parterre at the end of a match. Sometimes we'll get a takedown or we'll get an action that occurs right towards the end of a match. And the wrestler is working on top, and we have to be, and I don't think all of us have seen a situation where a referee stops and starts the wrestlers back in the standing position with like 2 seconds to go in the match. Well, it's probably a better idea is to leave them down that last 2 seconds. And if you know the time and you've done a good job with your positioning, you check the clock, you know that you can leave them down those last 2 seconds. And what you just did by leaving them down is eliminated any chance of there being any unsporting behavior that would occur at the end of the match. Because we've all seen it. Somebody's losing right at the end of the match, and then they club the wrestler, maybe they try to punch the wrestler, or they headbutt. There's a number of things they can do right at the end because they're losing and they're frustrated. Well, sometimes one of our best strategies to manage that is to actually just leave them in parterre at the end of a period. So here's a really good example of this. So there's 11 seconds to go, as you can see the time counting down. And Sammy does a great job. He noticed the time. And now they've been down for a little bit. Sometimes referees have a tendency to stop and bring them up, but there's really no reason to here. In this situation, the red wrestler is winning this match 9-3, and red is down. The only thing by putting them back on their feet with 3 or 4 seconds to go is something unsporting is going to happen, because with 3 seconds left, I am certain with a 6-point lead that there is not going to be a change in the result of this match. But by standing them up, and maybe you end up with a headbutt or something now you have to deal with. Now your match that went really well, now there's a problem, and now we have to deal with that problem. But this can be eliminated by how we handle ourselves on the mat and understanding that time. And sometimes you just have to leave them down, because I've seen more bad things happen in the last 3 seconds of matches because of a referee bringing somebody up, bringing them back to the standing position. Sometimes it's better just to leave them down, let the time run out. Another good one here is walking the wrestlers back to the center. This is something I try to do consistently every time I referee. When you go to restart the match, it's good to restart the match in between the wrestlers. So we go out of bounds, and as a referee, we want to follow those wrestlers back to the center. All right, and get in a habit of restarting between the wrestlers every time. That's just good habit and good practice. And I know that probably we've seen a referee who they go out of bounds, The referee stands on the edge, lets the wrestlers go back, stays really far back, and then restarts it from almost in the zone. That's probably not the best place to restart it. Try to walk up almost to where you would start a match normally at the beginning is where we want to restart the match when we go back. Now, the reason why this is important, there's a couple of things. Number one, this helps separate the wrestlers, before the whistle. Because sometimes we've seen wrestlers go back, they're really excited, they're ready to go wrestle, they go out of bounds, they come back, they immediately go back together and start wrestling before the whistle starts. Well, as a referee, sometimes you have to be able to be in between them, separate them, and then start them. This has happened to me probably more times in Greco than any of the other styles, but it's certainly possible in any style because they just turn around and they're ready to start pummeling and go back to it. And sometimes you have to separate them and make sure you get a good start. Another reason why I like to do this as well is sometimes you just need to talk to the wrestler and you just need to give them some small instruction on the walk back. And I do this often nationally because we speak the same language. We may go out of bounds. I've scored whatever the situation is, but on the walk back, I might say, red, you got to stay off his hands. Or red, make sure you keep your head up here. I'm not stopping and giving them an official attention and going through that process, but I will speak to them a little bit on the way back just to make sure that I'm controlling some potential unsporting behavior or some negative wrestling. So it's a really good time to do that. I also think that walking the wrestlers back to the center, it just gives you a good presence of where you're at as a referee and helps control those situations because you're always right next to them. So they know you can take care of a situation that comes up. So again, this is just a good strategy. And here's a good video of this from the Youth Olympic Games a few years ago. So here the match is wrestling. Christina is refereeing this match. They go out of bounds. Nice job. She scored 1 blue because 2 feet were out of bounds here. And she walks back to the center with the wrestlers. And notice as she does, they were getting ready to start wrestling. She wasn't ready for that. So she stepped between, separated them, and then restarted them again. That's a really great job of that. And even at the older levels, that starting to wrestle again will happen way more physical than what those 2 wrestlers did right there, especially when you get the senior level or the U23 level wrestlers. But again, just a great strategy here for this. So what we just did is kind of covered a few areas of how to reduce the potential for unsporting behavior, because that's really what we want to do. We want to reduce what we can so it doesn't even get to that part. So how we communicate, our positioning, knowing the time on the clock and walking the wrestlers back are all places that will help us just reduce the chances of having unsporting behavior. The next part here is how do we handle unsporting behavior, once it happens? The job of the referee is to prevent the situations from escalating, because once the situation happens, if something does happen, the referee must take care of it immediately, because if they don't, the situation could get worse. And something already happened that we didn't want to. There was some unsporting behavior. It just, it's not good for the sport. As a referee, we have to take care of that as quickly as possible. So our job is to make sure that we prevent the situation from getting worse. And one of the reasons we have to make sure we're ready to do this is if you've watched the wrestlers, if an unsporting behavior happens, like somebody gets clubbed in the head, really hard as they're wrestling, the defending wrestler is going to give you a second to fix that as a referee. Because the wrestler is going to say, well, if the referee isn't going to handle this, then I'm going to handle it. And then that's when they retaliate. So we have to, as referees, have to be ready to see this. We have to be ready to step in and take control of that situation, because that way that will prevent it. Because the wrestler that it just happened to, he needs to know, or she needs to know, that you're going to take care of it. Because if not, then they're probably going to take care of it themselves as well, which is only going to make this situation worse. So how do we do this? How do we prevent this from escalating? There's a few things to consider. Number one is good positioning, making sure that you position yourself where you need to during this time to not only see if something happens, but to be able to step in if something does. The second one here is good communication. We've got to be able to speak to the wrestlers. We got to have, our communication, our voice level, our tone, our vocabulary. All of those things will help, prevent this situation from getting worse. And probably most importantly, we need to be always looking for provoking behavior. Situations where one wrestler does something that provokes the other wrestler in the process. And when they provoke them, that's when we start to see the situation escalate. Then usually the second person is the one who gets, called for a caution or whatever that may happen to be. And all because we didn't see the provoking behavior that led to that situation. So we really as a referee, need to be on the lookout for those situations. When we handle unsporting behavior, we're really looking at it. We have to be able to deal with this really at any time within the match. This could be at the very beginning of the match. Something could happen during the match, and even things can happen after the match. So what are some good ways or some things to look at or you can do, during that time? So let's look at a few examples here of these situations. So the first one we're going to start out here is the start of the match. So here we actually saw this a webinar, maybe last webinar or 2 webinars ago. We're looking at the starting of the match because this is the same video, but what we did is I elongated it to cover the first 6-7 seconds of the match this time. So here's a good example. The referee checks, he starts the match, and they start wrestling. Immediately he stops and gives the warning. Immediately stops. We're 4 seconds into this match, and he already saw how it was going to go. And if you watch, he does a good job because, why is he talking to Red? Well, if you look at this, Red actually kind of gets the first little hand up to the head right there. And as he does, the Blue comes back with the next one. Now, if you as a referee don't take care of that situation now, those hands are going to become more and more physical as they go till the situation gets out of hand. But the referee did a fantastic job of seeing it immediately. 4 seconds in, he stops the match. He gives a stern warning, attention to both Blue and Red. And guess what? I can tell you, the rest of this match, there weren't any more problems. And this is a semifinal match at the World Championships 2 years ago. So it's a big match, a lot of implication, and a great job of how to handle the unsporting behavior right when he saw it. So it's a great job. Let's take a look at another example here of the situation during the match. So a situation that may occur here. So now we're, more towards the end of the match, but the referee does a great job here. He immediately saw the tension as it was starting to rise here because this was a close match. And as the wrestler got done, we'll show this again here. The wrestler is telling Blue to hurry up, and he's talking and speaking to him, which is just going to provoke and make this behavior worse. Now Blue may be angry, comes back, and now we have maybe a fight starts to happen. But because the referee did a great job of stopping, he followed the athletes back, which is, again, a great strategy as a referee. Walks back, immediately gives Red a warning that he won't speak. There's none of that. We're only going to wrestle. And because he did that, again, I was at this tournament, this match had no more problems. Had he not taken care of that, I can only imagine what may have happened as a result of that. Again, just provoking behavior and addressed it immediately. So it's a great job by the referee. And the last one here is at the end of the match. Sometimes unsporting behavior, you've got through the whole match, and now you get to the end of the match, and then something starts to happen. And here's just a great example of how to handle a situation afterwards. So here, time is out. It was 10-10, so a high-scoring match. Blue is the winner. And notice the referee did an excellent job right there. He saw that, first thing he did is he saw that Blue purposely ran into Red. So he immediately stopped and started to talk to Red to talk to Blue and warn Blue for that type of behavior. And in the process of being there, Red started to come back, and he was in between him. So he was able to separate these wrestlers from becoming more, from the situation escalating. So then again, he goes back, gets red, comes back again. Just a great job of controlling every aspect of this and talking to them. And this match, again, a semifinal match at the U23 World Championships, Sammy did an outstanding job here of controlling this match and making sure that a situation did not escalate and that the both wrestlers ended this match, they got off the mat, and everything was done correctly. So that is a great job of being able to control the match, control the bout, even after time was out. So that way nobody was yellow carded, nobody was red carded. The wrestler won the match, and now we're ready for the finals and the bronze medal matches later. Now, once we have unsporting behavior, how do we handle it? And we looked at some different ways and some different strategies. As a referee, you really have to choose one of three options. When you see unsporting behavior, you have to immediately make a decision. Is it going to be an attention? Are you going to give a caution and points? Or is it going to be direct disqualification? And I think you have to determine the level of severity of the situation. If this was a big foul that occurs, a very serious and very severe situation, then you have to go with the more severe consequence. If this was just a situation that happened, it was just getting started, then maybe an attention is better. So, but you have to determine what's the best course of action, and you have one of three choices. But you, again, need to stop it and immediately address the situation before it becomes worse. So here's what I want. We're going to watch a situation here. We're going to watch a small clip of this, and then I'm going to ask you your opinion here of which option would you choose. Would you give this an attention, a caution, or a disqualification? Again, referee saw that the headbutt, immediately stopped and addressed the situation. So now, as a referee, what would you give here? Would you give this an attention, a caution, or would this be direct disqualification? So I'll give you about 30 seconds to make your selection here. All right, let's share the results here. So a majority of you said you would give an attention to blue in this situation, and then a smaller percent of you said you would give a caution and 2 points. And I put caution 2 points because this is Greco-Roman, so any cautions with this situation would have to be with 2 points as a result of this. So let's take a look at this video again, and I'll tell you what the referee did. And I'll also talk about, there's another key part of this as well, I think, that we can always learn from as well. This situation was pretty severe. And I can tell you the referee did an excellent job of stopping, immediately goes and talks to blue. And then he immediately, after he gives that warning to blue, comes up and goes caution blue and 2 points for red for this situation. So he did give a caution and 2, and I would agree with that. This was a pretty severe unsporting behavior. Almost most headbutts, unless they're just accidental in the process, most of those typically go directly to a caution in this situation. And you can even see that the judge back in the back has got his paddle up for the caution, and he's about to bring the 2 points up for red as well. So this situation would probably be the best course of action here would be a direct caution and 2 points. And exactly what the referee's doing here is talking to him. So he did a really good job with that. The one area that I would also look at is leading up to this, there was a situation there where red kind of got a shoulder into red's face. And in that process kind of hit him with that shoulder, which then a few seconds later, then we have a headbutt from blue. So those are situations where if you can see and recognize those situations, so we'll see it right here in a second for red. right there. So Red came in with that shoulder and chest, and it doesn't look too bad, but that shoulder catches him in the head. And that's what and Blue is saying, like he put a shoulder into my face. So it doesn't give him the right to do a headbutt, of course not. But also be on the lookout for those, because if you see those things, you can immediately stop and address those situations, from there. So next part here is taking a look at unsporting behavior when we have to deal with coaches. And I know we have a few coaches here that are on this webinar. The first thing I really want to focus on here isn't so much of how do we handle this situation if something is, let's do something different. Let's focus on improving the referee and coach relationship. I think sometimes there is an adversarial relationship between these two groups. Each group thinks, doesn't like the other group and doesn't want to work together. And I think that's one area, if we can really improve on, is being able to just sit down and have constructive conversations so that we both understand where we're coming from and how we can both work together for the betterment of the sport. Because ultimately we really have the same goals, and that's the advancement of wrestling, around the world. We want this to really be a great sport for everyone to participate in, and we want to make sure that it's fair and we're doing the best job that we can. And I can tell you as a referee, like, I know I haven't made every call correct, and I probably won't as a referee. I'm going to do my very best. But I also know that sometimes wrestlers don't make every decision right. They make a poor choice, or the coach doesn't tell them all the right things. It's not just, everybody wants to see get better. And I think the only way we can do this is if we really focus to improve that relationship. So I'd encourage you to reach out to your coaches, and coaches reach out to the referees in your federations and begin to build a better relationship with that. I know that's something that I'm trying to do a better job of in the past few years here where I'm at, is trying to build and establish a better relationship, a better working relationship, so that we can both benefit and help each other in this process. Now, if some situation does take place, controlling the corners, how we do this we're working when we have coaches, or a coach gets up on the platform during a competition or comes out on the mat. You have the use of yellow and red cards. And we really want to focus primarily, of giving the warnings. We want to try to avoid having to use red cards if we can, but certainly some situations may warrant that. But our goal really is to try to get the warnings, try to have a communication, and improve this process. But if you have to, certainly you use the yellow and red cards as needed to help control those situations. The next part here is the consultation process, and really this is a tool for the mat chairman, because when you're trying to control the bout, sometimes a situation happens where maybe there's a mistake by the referee team, that the points are wrong, and it was a big mistake. It wasn't just a little one, it was a big mistake, and we need to control the situation before it begins to escalate the wrestlers, the coaches, everything else. So the mat chairman has this tool that they can use to help mediate the situation. Now, a couple things important here. One, this, as a mat chairman, you see the mistake by the referee team. And number two, this needs to be a big mistake, not whether, they thought it was 2 points out of bounds and you thought it was only 1 point and it was just a difference of opinion. This has to be a big mistake, and it has to potentially affect the outcome of the match if you're going to call a consultation, because we don't want to do this all the time, because consultations take time. And anytime they get time, that allows the wrestlers to get a break, which doesn't really help, benefit the wrestler who has been doing great training and who is in good condition. They want the match to continue. So we don't want to use consultations all the time, but it is a process there for us to use when we need to. How do we do this? First, you want the situation to be quick. So you, as a mat chairman, you call over the referee and judge. So they get over there quickly. During this time, the mat chairman does most of the talking. Like, the other two are coming over to hear what the mat chairman has to say about the situation. Then any small discussion can occur, and then an outcome has to be decided, and that will be decided by the mat chairman. They'll send the referee back out and judge back over to their spot. And then whatever the decision was by the team, the referee and mat chairman must show that before restarting the bout. So that's just a good strategy. And here's a a video of an example of this. So we had a situation, going out of bounds. I'm not sure what the referee scored in this situation. This was a few years ago at the Pan American Cadets. And the match chairman didn't like it, so he stopped the match and asked for a consultation. The referee did a good job of having the wrestlers stay in the center. The judge comes over. They have a relatively quick conversation here about what the score will be. And again, this is led by the match chairman, so we can't hear the audio, but I was there for this. The match chairman, discussed the situation with them because he didn't like the score that they gave for both of them. And then as soon as they come to an agreement here quickly, the referees are going to go back to their side. So they're done. So the referee goes to the center. The judge goes back to their seat on the other side. And now the referee scores the points for the situation along with the match chairman, and then they restart the match. So that's just a little bit on the consultation process. Again, I would not advocate to use this every time the match chairman doesn't agree with a call. Their coaches have the ability to challenge, so encourage them to do that. But if it's a big mistake and you see it and it can affect the outcome of the match, as a match chairman, have a consultation and get it corrected. Now I want to switch gears, just briefly here, talk about maintaining safety. And really going to, in this process, because as a referee, we have to be able to control the match. And one of those is being able to make sure that the athletes remain safe during that time. Now, I'm only going to focus on 3 areas here. The first situation is a front headlock situation, which is what's identified in this picture here. So, for those of you that know Larry Slater, this picture was from Larry Slater. He does a fantastic job of taking photographs, and not only just of the wrestlers in the action, but he often gets the referees in this as well. And here we have a situation where blue is in a front headlock with red, and Casey, the referee, is doing a great job because what he did is he changed his level to be able to see this situation and see the lock. A front headlock, or a front head hold, where we have the head and the arm encircled around the head, can be a dangerous position because it's certainly a possibility that they can cut off the blood supply, they can choke them a little bit, but the wrestler, the defending wrestler, could end up going unconscious. And I know that if we've watched enough wrestling at the international level, we've seen that happen from time to time. And we really want to avoid that because that is not safe for the wrestler. So as a referee, it's important that we immediately change levels and start to look at this lock. So Casey is immediately changing his level. He's getting down to see this lock. And he's also, I can tell just by where he's going to start moving towards the wrestlers so he can get more perpendicular to them to have a better view of this. As a referee, I would recommend a couple things if we get into this situation. Number one, you first say blue action. And this is with this picture, I would say blue action. And almost immediately. I'd wait a few seconds. I'm saying blue action again. If I don't see a change and blue makes an attempt or blue's doing something to score, then I'm going to stop it and immediately restart back in the center. Because one, I'm not going to let them hang there just as a break. And two, I have to be careful to make sure that they don't get choked in this situation or go unconscious. This is particularly important in Greco-Roman because they can't grab the legs, so they'll get caught in this situation and they'll really cut off that supply to the blood supply in the neck, and that the wrestler goes unconscious, and then we see scoring. So change your level, get close, indicate action to the wrestler, blue action, wait a second, blue action, okay, no change, restart back in the standing position. But definitely a situation we have to be mindful of as a referee. Another situation here is the holds on the legs, and certainly you can see from the 2 pictures on the left, you can see that the legs can get folded, they can go against the joints, and as referees, we need to make sure we're aware of those situations and when that can happen, and then we need to position ourselves to be close enough to be able to handle it, to stop it when needed and prevent it from going any further. So here's a great video here. Christina again at the Youth Olympics. So blue steps over that leg, but watch the leg now. Now blue starts to take that leg forward. In this situation, go back. Here, it's not, right now, this is not a problem. But we start to notice the evolution of this move. Notice how Red's turning and putting herself in this position a little bit. So Christina's looking, lets it go. But as soon as blue starts to drive, notice blue's movement starting to go forward, really moving that leg up. Immediately when they start taking that leg up, she stops it directly and stands them both up and warns blue to make sure she doesn't take that outside the joint. Now, if you're watching the video, if you watch this video again, you can see that one of the coaches for blue is in the stands, and he doesn't like this situation and when Christina stops it, but it was absolutely a great stop by her to prevent a potential injury, because what we don't want is that knee to continue to keep going. Red becomes injured, tears ligaments in her knee, and now she can no longer wrestle again. So we have to be very mindful of that, and Christina did a nice job of positioning herself, seeing it, and then stopping it at the right time. And the last situation here is holds on arms. We have to be careful when we see a single arm gripped. Sometimes in Greco or even in freestyle, those actions, they might be here. We have to make sure that arm doesn't go outside, because again, that's putting, pressure on the elbow and shoulder, and so they have to go. But we need to, as a referees, make sure we take, very close at the arms and their placements to make sure that they're not going in directions they're not supposed to. So we got a couple of just examples here of looking at the pressure that's being applied to the shoulders in these particular situations. And here's a great job. Here's a video example of this as well. Again, from the Youth Olympic Games, the referee does a fantastic job here. Starts to circle. Notice Red's pulling that arm up over that shoulder, and it was starting to get to where it was starting to get worse, and he stopped it before the situation got worse. So, from a coaching standpoint, if you're the Reds coach, you're upset because you're thinking, wow, Red was about to score. But we really have a responsibility to make sure that we maintain the safety of the wrestlers. And here I thought the referee did a great job of stopping that situation before that got worse, because Red could have let go of that arm at any time and circled behind. But because he kept pulling that arm, it was only getting worse. And it was really a good stop. So, those are the three situations I wanted to kind of talk about in terms of safety-wise, because when we control the bout, it's just not unsporting behaviors, but it's also maintaining safety of the wrestlers on the mat, and that involves looking at those situations. So now I will take a few questions. I saw some hands raised up during this time, and so if you have questions, certainly, and I'd like to have the questions, again, if we can, relate to the topics that we're talking about here. So I don't want to get into a lot of other situations, but really focusing on controlling the bout and how we could do that before. So for those of you that had your hand raised, if you want to, please go to the Q&A button at the bottom and ask a question you want, and I will do my best to get through all the questions I can before wrapping it up. So Willem from South Africa, so welcome, Willem. I know you're doing a set of webinars down there in your area, which is outstanding. So, and he said a tip you told me for a referee at a consultation is to make sure that the judge is back in position before you start the match. And that is absolutely a great tip. And I think sometimes as a referee, we have to be careful as a referee, because we go back and we just had a consultation and maybe what we scored wasn't right. So we're really nervous and really frustrated. And don't be frustrated if you're a referee and you get called over and they change the call, and have a consultation. Like, it's not a problem. If they do a video challenge, that's not a problem. The goal is to get it right. So even though if they change it, that's okay. Be relaxed, go back out, score your points, check and make sure the judge is seated before restarting the match, and then, then restarting the match and going back forth. But don't let sometimes that there's a lot of anxiety that referees, come with that process. If they see, something happens, they don't agree with the call, they get upset, they get nervous, relax, it's okay. Just make sure they get started. So. We'll take a look and see if there's any other questions. And I see a few of you with your hands raised. So certainly, if you have a question, I'd be glad to go through and answer this in the process. One thing I would encourage you to do as well, I know that, this is really our, last from the development department. This is one of our last webinars from the development department with referees. And so I encourage you to continually watch the referee commission webinars to get more details and more emphasis on the points and the scoring and how those situations should be scored and handled. I think it's really great to help everybody get on the same page in that process. And we're also going to be, as we do this webinar in three other languages. We do this in French, we'll do this in Spanish, and when we also do this in Russian. And we're also going to be starting in a couple weeks. We're going to be going through all of the referee development department webinars, and we're going to be doing them in Arabic as well. So we're taking another step farther to try to reach as many as we can. So certainly encourage, if you have anybody that hits those language, needs those language, to be on the lookout for those webinars, and certainly it would be a good resource for them. Question here. As a female officiating a heavyweight men's match, what techniques should be used to intervene if a fight starts? Well, I'll be honest with you, if they're really big, and it's going to be difficult for it would be difficult for me to step in between 125 130 kilo wrestlers if it really starts to escalate to that point. Your best bet really is once they start fighting. If that fight starts, there's not much you're going to be able to do and stop with that, particularly wrestlers of those size. Like, I couldn't do that as well. Your goal really isn't to try to stop the fight if it happens. Your goal is to prevent the fight from happening, which means getting in between the wrestlers. Before, if you start to see something, you can just you step in between them. That will help separate them, and it helps mediate that response. If you see something where they provoke a behavior, you immediately have to stop it and address it, and you have to really verbally communicate to that wrestler that was not correct. The other wrestler will see that, and it will help them relax in that situation. But stepping in between them before situations happen, typically diffuses a lot. It helps get them separated. And then, walking them back to the center. If you see one wrestler who's walking back, with an intent to start a fight, that's where you've got to be walking back with them and almost cut them off in between to be able to get it. And then you immediately talk to them and get that part. But again, I would say that, anytime something like that would start, you're going to need help probably if a fight does start. But our goal really as referees is try to prevent that and try to diffuse that situation before it gets to that. So try some of those strategies, really as you work through that. And one thing I'd always encourage you to do too, and I mentioned this in other webinars, I know there's a lot of great referees on this webinar, and anytime you get a chance to go to you're at a competition, watch other referees. This is where you can learn great strategies of how to implement those things into your refereeing style. Because you'll see somebody do something, you're like, hey, wow, that was really good. I need to make sure I put that into my arsenal of things I can do. And that way, if that situation comes up, you're ready to handle it because you've seen it, you've witnessed it, you saw how it works. Because certain referees, I would say it's some of the best referees in the world that I've been around, they never have problems with these things on the mat. And it's not because they don't have the wrestlers. It's just because they are able to do things and control the bout really well. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Question here from Rudy. What happens if a wrestler is in danger of an injury or legal hold and the referee and judge or mat chairman do not notice it? What can the coach do to the challenge, or what do you do to prevent the injury to the athlete? I think that, one is two things. If the wrestler is in the danger of the injury or the hold, you're certainly, as a coach, you're verbalizing that aspect. You might help them indicate what situation you see that maybe they're not seeing. Maybe a knee is going outside, maybe an arm, they don't see the arm. Maybe try to indicate that situation as well. If you need to, throwing the challenge out may help, get their attention to that part. That's certainly a possibility. I trying to coming up on the match and running out. Again, it's hard for me to give an answer to this, largely because I really need to see the situation. There's certainly some situations that have been really bad, and coaches have been up on the stage that have came out there, and I understand, why they did. As long as you're coming out to the wrestler and you're not coming out with an aggression towards the referee, it's certainly there's situations where that might be reasonable. But for the most part, you really want to try to communicate verbally to the referee so they see that situation. Try throwing the challenge block to get their attention with those if something like that is happening. But that's probably about what the best you can do in that situation. But again, without seeing a specific situation, say here's what I would do as a coach, or here's what I would recommend doing. It's hard to be able to do that. But certainly we want to, one, protect the athletes, and two, make sure that we, this is, nobody gets hurt, but we also make sure we're conducting ourselves professionally and the best that we can. We don't want, a fight to break out between the coach and the referee. And I can tell you from being where I live at U Sports, that sometimes they don't like a call that gets made and it has nothing to do with injuries, and those types of things are happening. So we got to make sure we're, approach that in a very professional manner. Next question: when both wrestlers start before the referee's whistle for the second time again, both of them start before the referees, what can the referee do? Really, I think as a referee, I would just, if they start once, I know that when I go back to the center, they're going to start again. It's really not that big of a deal as long as you don't blow the whistle and somebody's already has a hold. If they go back and they turn and start wrestling again, I would just say stop, separate them, and then immediately blow the whistle. So I wouldn't get too worried about that. That's pretty normal occurrences, especially at high level matches where they're really competing. They turn and they're already got hands on them. So you got to get back to center, just separate them, restart them. And if you have to do that multiple times, that it shouldn't be, multiple different restarts is not a problem. If you keep doing this, if one wrestler keeps coming before you start, then stop and just give them a quick warning and then move them back during that time. But that was what I would recommend. Question: does the referee have to get permission from the chair before a yellow or red card, an athlete or coach? Yellow cards do not. That yellow card can be given by anybody really at any time as a way to warning, as giving that warning. The red card is typically going to be given from the mat chairman, because this is going to, when you red card somebody or red card an athlete or whatever that is, there has to be an agreement here, especially if you're disqualifying a wrestler from that standpoint. So, many times that's going to be given by the mat chairman. So the referee on the mat will handle the yellow cards. Now, the referee on the mat may give the red card, but out of communication and direction from the mat chairman during that time. So the mat chairman will typically handle the red cards, so the referee will display it, but the referee at any time can give a yellow card as needed to an athlete or coach. All right, I don't see any more questions here, so I'm going to kind of wrap up here. So a real quick review. In this process here, handling unsporting behaviors our job is to, make sure that we are trying to deal with any unsporting behaviors that come up. And we often do this by a few things. Number one, great positioning by the referee. Two, being able to communicate well and communicate with, a good tone and volume of your voice that's going to command some authority out there. You don't have to yell at them, but you've got to have that presence and those communication skills to do that. And then also recognizing provoking behavior. That is a critical aspect of being able to control the bout at any time. Know that there are some simple strategies that can help to prevent unsporting behaviors. For example, stepping in and out when you're talking to the wrestlers. That presence allows them to see they can feel you. That reduces unsporting behaviors. Walking them back to the center will help reduce unsporting behaviors, because you can step in, you can talk to them, You can communicate during that time very easily, and you can separate the wrestlers before they start wrestling. And then also making sure knowing how much time is on the clock is also a great way to reduce unsporting behaviors. Because if there's a situation at the end of the match and they are down a parterre and I've got a winner, I am not bringing them up in the last 3 seconds or 4 seconds to restart the match. Like, they're going to have to probably have somewhere, they have to be down for a while, and probably bring them up with anywhere from 8 to 10 seconds left. I might, but once we get under 10, I'm probably going to leave them down most of the time, just to avoid a situation happening in that process. And then lastly here, we have to make sure that we do a good job of recognizing and preventing injuries in the process. You know, that's one aspect that sometimes when we talk about controlling the bout, we only think of unsporting behaviors, but just as equally important is making sure we can recognize and prevent injuries before they happen. So really focus on those aspects as you go as a referee. And I encourage you, really, as you get a chance, you know, these are some things that you can work on, like the strategies to reduce unsporting behaviors. You can do that at a local tournament, local competition. You can practice your distance from the wrestlers. You can practice walking them back to the center. You can practice knowing how much time's on the clock and when to leave them down and when to bring them back up. You can recognize injuries and look for those things. So you can deal with a lot of those things or practice all those things even at local competitions to help prepare you for the bigger ones. So again, I just like to take an opportunity just to thank everybody for being here with us today. And again, I apologize for the sound, you know, occasionally chiming in with the buzz for our passing period. So, you know, thank you for bearing through that during this process. And, you know, certainly look forward to hopefully seeing a number of you at different webinars in the future. I would encourage you to definitely get back, if you haven't had a chance, to watch the July 23rd webinar on athlete safety with Dr. Babak and Antonio, and then be on the lookout for, you know, more referee commission webinars, and then also having the referee webinars in multiple languages. You know, please take an opportunity to continue to learn and improve during this time. So, and as always, you know, I hope you stay safe, be safe, and we hope to see you on the mats soon. So thanks.